I'm glad I hope some of you are feeling as nervous as I am right now. It's taken me a couple of minutes to get over my nerve problems. But you're very welcome here this morning, and this is our 18th conference, right? And how we know that is because our youngest daughter was born about 3 or 4 days before our first conference. And you could say, how did that happen? How did you run a conference when your wife had just had a baby? And I don't know, but somehow we did. And when we first had our first conference, guess who did everything? Me. There wasn't much other help at that time. And when we had our first conference, my hair was mainly black and I didn't look like Santa Claus. But now I'm ever looking more and more like Santa Claus. And I actually went around the backpackers that do the freedom camping on the day before Christmas, and we took a box of, we took about 15 boxes of favourites or whatever they're called, and a tract, a Christmas tract, and from Ray Comfort. And we went round and we asked them where they came from, and I told them that we'd had hundreds of backpackers stay on our farm, and we just wanted to wish them a Merry Christmas. And we gave them a box of this and a tract, and they were so happy. They were so happy that somebody in the busyness of Christmas thought of coming and wishing them a Merry Christmas. And one French guy, he was I guess he might have been about 30. He was so happy, he ran back to his camper van and he pulls out this bag of stuff and he comes and gives it to me, and I thought it was drugs. I thought he was so thankful he was giving me a little bag of drugs. But, and it's in French because he's French, so I don't really know what it is, but, and he reckons it's some sort of salt. And he reckons it's very good. I don't know what you do with it. But anyway, we've had a lot of conferences and we've had some backpackers here. One American took my daughter, and now she isn't here. She's in America. So, but my Dutch son-in-law, my daughter's still here, and the Filipino son-in-law, my daughter's still here in New Zealand. My South African son-in-law, she's still here. But anyway, it's been a great 18 years of conferences. And, you might say, well, why do you have these conferences? And last year, I did a little sermon about diversity in the Christian church. And there's room for diversity, but there's no room for division. And the purpose of these conferences is to encourage Christians. It's to encourage the church of the living God. And you may say, well, which church are you encouraging? The Baptist church? Is it the Brethren church you want to encourage and build up in their faith? No, it's the church of the living God. I went to Tasmania one time to listen to a Presbyterian preacher and have a look at his church that was growing in leaps and bounds. And it was all because of the preaching of the Bible in the power of the Spirit. And one lady asked me, she said, which church do you belong to? And I was a young Christian, And I said, well, I belong to the church that Jesus Christ died for. And she said, I've never heard of that church before. Where does that originate from? I could have told her it originated in Israel. And but what's the name? Well, they just called us Christians. And, that's all we need is Jesus Christ. That's all I needed when I got saved, is Jesus Christ. And the purpose of this conference is to strengthen the church. Because, the church is in a very bad state. Which church? My church? Your church? If I started pointing fingers, oh, wait a minute, 3 fingers are pointing back at me. The church of the living God is in a terrible state. I'm 65, We've got another lady here that's 80 from the outback of Australia. Which rest home does she live in, young people? Which rest home does she live in? She lives in the outback of Australia and travels around the outback in a bus or truck, doing what she's done for many years amongst Aborigines. And you young people, if you could get alongside of her, don't talk too much, listen to what she has to say, and you might learn something. Because she came from another generation when people's marriages didn't break down like they're breaking down today. She came from another generation where the church was strong. And Aborigines were getting saved, and some of them are still saved if they haven't died. She comes from a generation when missionaries came to this country and Maori people got saved. And they were fruit that remained. And I met some of them. I met one of the last purebred Maoris, I don't know what the right word is, full-blooded Maoris. I met one of the last ones before she died. And they were saved. And they lived the Christian life. But we're not seeing that today. And the Church of the Living God is in trouble. And so we're not here to bring a line of doctrine that you need. We're here to encourage and to build up Christians. And we are to pray a prayer in this conference. We are here to pray a prayer. And I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to read it to you before we start. I haven't got any notes. I'm just a loose cannon. And my family gets a little bit embarrassed sometimes that he's a loose cannon. Sit down and let somebody else take your place. No, I'm going to keep going till the day I die, just like Hazel is down the back there. Just like another man that I know in America who wanted to come to this conference, and I'm going to show you a little bit of him because he couldn't come. He's had cerebral palsy all his life. And he's preached the gospel and shared his testimony all his life. And he wanted to come to this conference. But at 70 years old, with cerebral palsy, a man who when he was born dead for a long time, but God raised him up. But he had cerebral palsy all his life. And he wanted to come to this conference because he wants to serve God till the day he dies. That's the last generation. It's not what we got today. You listen to this chapter of Nehemiah, and I hope there's some people here that can take a hold of this prayer and make it our own. Because just like Israel was in a terrible state a long time ago, our church in New Zealand and around the world is in a similar state. We've lost the plot. We have. We've lost the plot. Why am I a little bit angry? Because I'm sick of hearing of all the sordid stuff that goes on in churches today and all the affairs. You know what I mean by affairs, eh? And all the adultery, and all the broken relationships, the broken marriages. You know, it used to be the odd one, but now it's everywhere. And now you're hearing of young people, song leaders, living together before they're married. And sometimes most times the church will do nothing about it. Oh, we've got to love them. Well, if you're not going to correct your children, you don't love them. It's not the love of God. It's a superficial kind of love. You listen to Nehemiah. Nehemiah, probably when he spoke, he probably sounded a little bit like me. When I started this conference, it was me that did everything. And I'm very thankful today that I've got a son and I've got son-in-laws that step in my place. And you'll hear one of them. And I told him, if you want to marry my daughter, you Dutch man, You better grow a beard. No, I didn't. I didn't do that. Is there no lights up here? Because it's a little bit hard to see up here. Okay. Well, I might be an old man, but I know how to use technology. Very good. The words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah. And it came to pass in the month Shisley, in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan, the palace, that Hananiah, one of my brethren, came, he and certain men of Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews that had escaped, which were left at the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. You know, we're hearing reports all the time about the church in our age today. Have a look around and see how many church buildings are not churches anymore, if you don't believe me. And they said unto me, the remnant that are left of the captivity, they're in the province and are in great affliction and reproach. You know, we're supposed to have a reproach upon us, but not the reproach that the church has got on it today. We have to have the reproach of Jesus Christ. The wall of Jerusalem also is broken down, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. And it came to pass, when I heard these words, that I sat down and wept. Is there anybody weeping here today? Have we got a spirit that would weep, or have we got a party spirit? Because I'll tell you what, that's what's prevalent today. A party spirit. Not a weeping spirit for the church today. For God's cause today. And it came to pass when I heard these words that I sat down and wept, and I mourned certain days, and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven, and said, I beseech thee, O Lord God of heaven, the great and terrible God, that keepeth covenant and mercy for them that love him, and observe his commandments. Is that for the church today? Or do we just do what we like? No. Them that love him and observe his commandments. Let thine ear now be attentive, and thy eyes open. Young people, open up your eyes. See that this church that is all around us today is not normal. It's not normal Christianity. You know, an Israeli girl came to our place one time, and she was working in the synagogue in Wellington. And she came to our family and she said, you haven't got Christianity. And I said, what? She said, you've got something deeper than Christianity. Because she's seen the Christianity that's all around today. And I'll tell you what, Israelis would see through it, no trouble at all. She could see we had something different. I said, no, what we've got is normal Christianity. It's the normal Christianity that Hazel and her family had in the outback of Australia. You Vista boys, you ask Hazel about her brother. How old is your brother, Hazel? 83. And has had children's camps like this camp here for a long, long time. You ask her about him, because your father was in a very similar state. At 83, he tipped his tractor over on top of him. And he's worried about the cancer coming up in the next few weeks. Ask her about him. Let thine ear now be attentive, and thy eyes open, that thou mayest hear the prayer of thy servant, which I pray before thee now, day and night, for the children of Israel, thy servants, and confess the sins of the children of Israel, which we have sinned against thee, both I and my father's house have sinned. And I can say that to you right now. Me and my Saviour's and my father's house have sinned deeply. And my father spent 6 years in prison before he died and went to a rest home and died. He didn't die before the rest home. He got out of prison, went to a rest home, and then he died. We have dealt very corruptly against thee. And if you think the church today hasn't, open up your eyes. Wake up. I'm not talking about the church out there. I'm talking about the church here. Us here. Whoever comes to this camp. We're not what we should be. And that's the purpose of this camp. To become what we should be. And we invite people all over the world to come here and speak to us that are doing something for God. We have dealt very corruptly against thee and have not kept thy commandments, nor the statutes, nor the judgments which thou commanded thy servant Moses. Have a look in the New Testament and just have a look, see if there's any commandments. Have a look and see if there's any statutes. Have a look and see if there's a way. Because there is. And it can be found not in the Baptist church. It can be found in Jesus Christ. The way, the truth, and the life. Remember, I beseech thee, the word that thou commandest thy servant Moses, saying, if ye transgress, I will scatter you abroad among the nations. But if ye turn unto me, and keep my commandments, and do them, though there were of you cast out unto the uttermost part of the heaven, yet will I gather them from hence. And I believe that there's hope for the church today, and will bring them unto the place that I have chosen to set my name there. Now these are thy servants and thy people, whom thou hast redeemed. And if you're born again in this meeting, you've been redeemed by thy great power, not by your own strength, but by thy great power and by thy strong hand. Oh, I thought I did it. No, you didn't. Maybe you haven't. Maybe God hasn't done it. If you think you've done it, well, God didn't do it. O Lord, I beseech thee, let now thine ear be attentive to thy prayer of thy servant, and to the prayer of thy servants, and who desire to fear thy name and prosper. I pray thee, thy servant this day, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man, for I was the king's cupbearer. So maybe I have preached the message this morning. But anyway, I've stopped, and one of my son-in-laws is going to come and lead us in some songs. So if you can come forward, Johan. By the way, another reason I know it's 18 years, Johan came to our first conference 18 years ago. And now he's a son-in-law.